which show signs of having been burned. So far, more than 500 new relics in total have been discovered, and these include gold and bronze statues, masks, and other articles, as well as jade and pottery. Experts have also found some architectural remains in pit number 8, which is the largest of the 6 pits. Of course, for the latest, let's check in with CGTN's Ji Xiaojun in Guanghan, Sichuan province, where the Sanxingdui Ruins are located. Xiaojun, good afternoon to you. Day 3 of our special coverage. It doesn't seem we're running out of surprises from those 6 newly discovered pits. What can we expect today?
Well, a lot to expect every day indeed. Here is a recap of what have been taken out of the pit, and so far they've taken out a bronze zun from pit number 3, a jade cong, and a complete elephant tusk from pit number 4, and the golden, not to mention the golden mask, 5 together, wooden foils and ivory carvings. And archaeologists do have plans today to remove more objects, including possibly one more bronze zun from pit number 3, and this time is going to be a round-mouthed square zun, bronze zun from pit number 3, and at the same time they're also planning to remove some golden foils from pit number 4, and also possibly, very likely, a golden chain or band from pit number 5 today. We'll wait and see. I will bring you the latest pictures when it happens. At the same time, in pit number 5, they found a lot of golden foils, and now researchers find that it seems all these foils are being left at the pit in certain patterns, and some researchers suspect all these golden foils together with some ivory carvings together with some jade pipes also found in the pit. Probably they were parts of a decorative chain that used to belong to a priest. Now remember the wooden box or wooden case found in pit number 6. Well, still no traces of human bones or animal bones found inside yet, but experts are not ruling out the possibility. And the earth extracted from within the box or the case was already sent to the lab and for further analysis. They're also testing the earth for the signs of fibroid. If it is tested positive, then it proves that there used to be silk inside. And at the same time, they also found red colors in the box, and not decided yet whether it's cinnabar or lacquer. Just next to the the wooden box, and also found a long piece of wooden object, also heavily carbonized. Some archaeologists also suspect it might be remains of an ancient zither or an ancient table, but it's still up to further analysis. Now, pit number 6, this is pit number 6, and pit number 7 was partially overlapped with pit number 6, so the digging is still ongoing. It's already 1.1 meters deep, but still, so far no artifacts have come to the surface yet. And like you mentioned, pit number 8 is the largest one. So far they've found some architecture-related remains, including what was suspected as a section of carbonized roof beam. Now, just remember, this is 3,000 years ago. It's extremely rare to find the actual objects, the wooden objects from over 3,000 years ago. But at the same time, the digging at the pit number 8 is still ongoing, and they've found a stone dagger already, but no major artifacts have come to the surface yet. But at the same time, experts believe that there might be, very likely, there would be some large quantity of bronze vessels buried underneath, because after they detected the pit with some metal detectors. 钟氏。
Xiaojun, I love this review/preview from you every day. In a few moments, we're going to take our viewers again live to Sanxingdui to see how the work is being conducted today. We hope to check back in with you later on the program. CGTN's Ji Xiaojun live at Sanxingdui. Thank you so much. The ruins were first discovered almost 100 years ago. CGTN's Gao Yiming walks us through the decades of their excavation.
In the late 1920s, a farmer named Yan Daocheng was digging a ditch in southwest China's Sichuan province when he accidentally unearthed a large stash of jade relics. The discovery soon caught the attention of archaeologists. In 1934, a team of experts began a small-scale excavation at the site, and they found more jade and stone carvings. Experts linked the relics to the ancient Chu kingdom. But further excavations in the 1980s led to new revelations. In 1986, archaeologists found 2 treasure pits from the Bronze Age. They contained thousands of artifacts, including gold, bronze, jade, potteries, as well as elephant tusks. They were carefully buried, most of them broken and burned as if given as sacrifice. Radiocarbon dating traced their existence back to as early as the 12th century BCE. It's suggested that they could be part of a lost civilization, which had its own symbols, letters, cities, and rituals. In 1988, China placed the Sanxingdui site under state protection due to its cultural value to the country. 9 years later, the Sanxingdui Museum was opened, displaying the relics to the public. But the excavations and research haven't stopped. Between 2019 and 2020, archaeologists discovered 6 sacrificial pits at the site. With new efforts underway, we can expect more mysteries to be uncovered about the Sanxingdui Ruins. Gao Yiming, CGTN.
Joining me now in the studio today, Professor Li Xingwei from the Institute of Archaeology at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences and CGTN reporter Zheng Yibing, who has been to the Sanxingdui Ruins covering the story for us. Professor Li Yibing, welcome to the program. Great to have you with us today. I want to start with you, Professor. In a few moments, we're going to take our viewers live to Sanxingdui to see what type of work is being done today in the pits. But at the same time, we've been comparing and contrasting the work being done now and then the excavation back in 1986, some 35 years ago. At that time, it was more of a rescue excavation, but today it's more protection and research oriented. What has enabled us to do the work as we see it today?
Yeah, I think the most important achievement is the use of many new technology. You can see it's a real kind of multidisciplinary excavation project. So that's the most important achievement. We can see we use some new cameras to take photos and take videos, and we have a lot of instruments to do the analysis of different samples, so we can get much more information from the excavation. That's a very, very important achievement. Another one I want to mention is that we know a lot about our prehistory, our Bronze Age, our Neolithic age. So that's also very important for this new excavation. So you have much more questions in your mind, and so you know what kind of answer you want to look for. So that's very important for excavation. The thinking, your idea is very important. Sometimes we say, if you have some idea in your mind, you can find the evidence you want. So that's also very important.
Absolutely. Yibing, we're all excited for very different reasons. For experts like Professor Li, this is a big leap in the science of archaeology, and they're excited about what's going to be found. But for you who've covered Sanxingdui yourself, you witnessed the artifacts displayed in the museum. Those were earlier artifacts excavated, the last time around, and now we're about to witness a lot more in bigger quantity, in probably better conditions as technology has evolved. How do you feel about the excavation efforts that are happening right now as we speak?
Well, to me, the Sanxingdui is a very special place. For me, for many other people in China, and even in other parts of the world, this place is really special. And someday, it's a kind of the symbol of the clan leaders in the ancient Shu kingdom. And also someday, it is a symbol or the remains of the extraterrestrial civilization. So even it appeared into many books and documentaries. So a lot of people want to know the knowledge about that. Back in the 2017, when I was stationed in Sichuan news hub of our CGTN, this place and also Jingsha site became one of the top list of my reporting. So I went there. At the moment when I went into the museums, I got really shocked. It's really magnificent. So many artifacts, including the 1,700 artifacts unearthed back in the year 1986 from the Peg 1 and Peg 2. They already showcased the magnificent civilization of the Shu Kingdom. And this time, for the upcoming another pits to be explored, to be unearthed for the artifacts, I'm really looking forward to that as the general public member.
We're all waiting with breath that is bated. Thank you so much. I'm so fortunate to have both of you joining our special coverage today. I'll be circling back to you later on our program. And great efforts have been made to repair and restore the artifacts at the Sanxingdui site to their original shape and glory. Yu Jian, the director of the Exhibition Protection Department at the Sanxingdui Museum, is one of the restoration experts. He has been doing this for over a decade and talked to CGTN about the challenges of his job.
Your job is to put separate pieces together to form a complete picture, but it seems it's not that simple.
可能你们看到的很多文物修复拼接的那个环节，其实只是我们修复过程中其中的一部分。那么你要对一件文物进行修复的话，那么你可能前期就需要有大量的研究，像金属器，你要对它的一些铸造工艺或者对它的成分进行一些分析。这个样的话，你才能够为你下一步就是我们实际操作修复动手来提供我们更好的一种方法。
So when would be your most frustrating moment?
其实我们在做文物修复工作呢，其实还是有很多困难。就是说很多困难呢，哪种困难？一个是时间上的困难，就是说有可能你做一项工作时间很紧迫，还有一个呢，就是我们在工作过程中可能也会遇到很多问题。那么这些问题呢，现在就是我们在做这个工作的时候，就会要通过各种方法，就是一定要啥呢？就是说，就算遇到问题了，我们不能说把它就放到一边。其实从事文物修复和保护，它有很多这种方法能解决。我们就要找其他新的方法，会不会引入了一些像一些检测设备？可能我们没有想到的，是不是再去查一下文献，看看有没有相对应的这种解决的方法？那么我们需要多学科，像考古学科，或者是历史学科，或者美术学或者雕塑学各种学科的这种加入，然后呢，我们想出另外的方法，能够有依据的方法，要对这个保护工作要能够更顺利的开展。
Let's stay on this topic and talk about restoration and conservation of these newly found artifacts with my two guests here. Professor Li, I don't know if our viewers saw that, but at the pits this time, the excavation chambers on the site are all connected with instant conservation rooms where the artifacts get dusted and cleaned as soon as they get unearthed. How important to have what we call this first aid on site immediately to rescue those unearthed artifacts?
That's very important. So you see, when the artifacts when exposed to the open air, if some information may change very fast, such as the color of the painting or some organic thing may change when it's exposed to the open air. So you need to take them, preserve them as soon as possible to keep the original information, and you need to take the samples and to make the necessary analysis as soon as possible. That's very important. So that's why they just built a lab-like a room just in situ to do all the necessary analysis as soon as possible.
That cuts travel time between the pit and your studio that they can be preserved in the best condition possible. How long before these artifacts can be fully studied and then presented to viewers and visitors in a museum? What's the time span like?
Usually at the site you need to do some first aid analysis and a kind of preservation. Maybe you need to paint it a layer of a certain liquid to keep the original color or make the fragile artifact more stable. And after that, you take them back to the lab and make more restoration and more analysis before you can take them to the museum to show to the
Understood.
public. It's different from the artifact. What kind of artifacts you need to restore?
Understood.
Sometimes for some artifact maybe just several weeks, but for some artifact maybe even more than 1 year. Some of the process of restoration should be very slow.
Absolutely. Yibing, you've been to the museum. What have you learned about the conditions of the artifacts that went through the process we just talked about and eventually ended up in the museum? What are the challenges in keeping them in good condition and at the same time providing an environment and an opportunity for visitors to appreciate their value?
I think the most the challenging thing is the temperature and also humidity and also the light environment to keeping, preserving, and restoring all these artifacts. And as far as I know, the most impressive part for me is a bronze statue which is called the Heavenly Tree, and that one, when people found it. It was in broken
pieces.
into the pieces, hundreds of fragments, and people took at least 10 years to restore that. And during this process, the biggest challenge is how to figure out their original picture of these bronze trees and how to put it back into the right place and show people the real figure of that. So this is a challenge. And also the keeping environment, because we went to the laboratory of the Sanxingdui site, and that place looks really, really special. The workers there keeping working day after night, and even today, the staff there are still trying to piece together the number 3 bronze trees.
Right, very impressive trees indeed. Hold that thought. We're going to take our viewers now straight to Sanxingdui to see what is happening.
大家现在看到的就是
Now,
三
what
星
we
堆
are
考古发掘
watching
大棚。
is the
大
shed
棚
for
内就是
Sanxingdui
这次
Archaeological
三星堆发
excavation.
掘现场的
Inside
4 个
this shed,
考
we
古
can
发掘
find
舱。
4 archaeological excavation
5000多年前
cabins.
古蜀先民
About
就在这块土
5,000
地
years
上
ago,
繁衍
our
生息。
ancestors in
3000 多
the
年前，这
ancient
里曾是一个辉
Shu
煌显赫
Kingdom
的都城所
have
在地。
carried out
尽
a
管
very
厚厚的黄
wonderful
土掩盖了
life
几千
here,
年历史
and
的
now
痕
we
迹
can find the
但随着
ruins.
渐渐奇
Even
珍异
though
宝的
today the
破土而
ruins they are
出，
covered
那
by
个
all
古
the
蜀国的轮
backfill
廓
soil,
越来越
but
清
still
晰。
we
下面
can
就跟着我
see
的镜
how
头
it
一
looked
起
like
来看
from
历史。
some artifacts. Now, together
现
with
在我
us,
们
we
缓
can
缓走进
reveal
的
the
是
secrets.
5、6、7
Now
号
we are
坑所
walking
在的一个
inside
发
the
掘舱。
pits 5, 6, and
先
7.
请马领队来给我们介绍
First
一
of all,
下
I'd like
目
to
前
give the
这几
floor
个
to
坑内的一个
Captain
真
Ma
实
to
性
talk
的情
about
况。
the
现在看到
general
是5号坑
situation
是
about the
金光闪
pits.
闪坑。
Now we are looking
对，
at
现在
the
看到的是5
glittering
号坑。
pit 5.
目前呢，我们
Yes,
已经
exactly
发
with
掘
the
到
pit
距
5.
坑口
We
60
have
到
reached
65
to a
公分
depth
的
of
位置。
60 to
目前所
65
发现的器物
centimeters.
都以
And
结
until
石
now,
片、
most of the
坚石器为
artifacts
主。
unearthed here
包
are
括我们之
made
前
of
提
gold.
到的
For
大型
example, the
地面具、
previously
鸟形地
discovered
片等等。
massive
经过
gold
我们
facial
考
mask
古
and
队
also
几
the
个月的努
bird-shaped
力，
gold leaf.
现
After
在在坑
months
内
of
已经发现
excavation
了
work
各
and
式
also
各样
cleaning
的
work,
金箔片，
currently
撒
the
满
whole
坑。
pit is fully
此外
covered by
呢，
all
还
types
有
of
口
gold
雷金的
foils,
玉
and
器、
also there are
玉
some
管、陶器
scattered
等等。
oval jade
6号
artifacts
坑
and jade
是
tubes.
发掘到距坑口
And for the
60
pit
公分的位置。
6, we have reached a depth of
距坑口
60
90公分的位置。
90
现在我们
centimeters.
看到这是
这
一个
就是那个叫眼镜型的玉
哦，
器。
眼
对
形玉器
眼形玉器。
This
作为这些
is
塑
another
料
piece
薄
of
膜是
jade
起到
artifact, and also for the surrounding plastic films. They are covering
保湿
the
的哦，看上面有很多
elephant
的水
tusk
汽
in
啊。
order to keep the humidity
那目前我
right
们这个是有
to
一个
pay
断层
attention
扫
to the
描图，可以
hydration. We
看到
also have
一段
a
时间之内
tomo
我们发掘
scan.
工作的整
You
个的
can
一个
see
场景。
how we have
我们来看一
progressed
下
with our excavation work.
这个眼形器很漂亮哈，而且没怎么
So this
对
piece of
很
jade
亮
is
很润。
very beautiful.
这就是断层扫描图，这是
And this is our tomo scan.
最下边，
这
啊
最上面
最
最上面的
最上面，对。
This
看一下日期啊
corresponds
这
to
是
the
去年12月的
early state, back
这是
to
已经
last
挖
December,
了一部分。
and also partly discovered
8号的。
by the 28th of December, and we
这还是个上面
continue
什么东西
1月4号。
until January the 4th.
哦，这儿已经看见
到时候那个
这是那个
And
纪
now
念器
by
啊
the 4th tomo scan, we can already
非常震撼。
notice some artifacts, and currently these objects has already been
已经露出了更多的
extracted from the
金
pits,
箔片了。
and more gold foils are unearthed here and exposed.
啊，1月31。
And this is our latest version of the tomoscan. And by all those files and pictures, you can imagine how amazed our team members must be during this whole process of discovery. This is another piece of gold foil, and it has a hole in the middle part. We cannot tell the exact scale of it. However, it's really tiny in real terms, only as big as our fingernails. And in the middle of the gold foil, there's a little hole, as is mentioned before. So when we look at it, we could have a guess that in the past, people may have used a rope or a wire to go through all those gold wires and then attached it to the surface of our clothing. And they must be also stitched to our clothes as a kind of ornament to the cape or to other cloaks. At the same time, we have also unearthed the other ornaments, for example, the crown in gold and also the bird-shaped gold foils. They should belong to the whole setting of the ornament and combined with the jade. So the whole set of the decoration is really delicate and exquisite. This is another artifact. We call it the oval-shaped jade artifact. And we have also noticed some extra pieces of the elephant tusks. And all those fragments of the elephant tusk are scattered. So we are wondering whether they have been smashed before being put inside this pit. So all those artifacts are also used for the decoration. Not exactly, we are not sure. For example, back to the ancient tombs of the Fuhao, we have also discovered similar artifacts. And for the jade tubes, now we are watching this jade tube. We can also use a wire to go through it, to pierce it, so that we can put all the jade tubes together and use it as a very beautiful decoration. So it's pierced. We can find some holes on the tubes. How our ancestors have managed to do that piercing. So it may be correlated with the advanced technologies of our ancestors to deal with the jade. So that could be really challenging to our ancestors, and the degree of the difficulty could be quite high for them. And with all those objects, artifacts, we can imagine that the owner of these objects could be a very high-ranked person in the society, and also the gold crown. So this looks like a wardrobe of our ancestor, a very high-ranked aristocrat. From the picture we have unearthed once a similar artifact. It looks like a comb, but currently we have not yet completed with the cleaning work, so we cannot have the final say about what it is. But still, it's a very important artifact, and we can also find some traces of burning, maybe the traces of the soil. Because if there's the burning fire, they would be melted down, just as is with our massive gold facial mask. So all those are the belongings to a high-ranked person, because they are for the sacrificial ceremonies, as we can guess. Yes, with the glittering cloak and some other jade ornament. This is another piece of ivory on top of the plastic films. All those are the fragments. Yes, and until now, we are very interested in the sculptures of the elephant tusks. We really hope that we could find some patterns on the surface of those pieces of ivory. Like that, it can help us to restore the whole piece. What about the black fragments? Also the ivory, but already burnt. The burnt pieces of the elephant's tusks. And above that, we can see another piece of the gold foil. We are not sure about the final shape of it.
We
can have a guess. It may be the fragments of the whole clothing and currently scattered to the different sites inside this pit. And we hope that one day maybe we could try to restore the whole piece of clothing by assembling all the fragments together. And for the fragments of the elephant's tusks, they are not just broken, simple broken pieces. They could all belong to the same ivory sculptures, so they should be belonging to the same body of the sculpture. And from this pit, we can see most of the artifacts unearthed here. They are rather high-ranked objects. We have only unearthed several smaller size of the bronze wares. This is another jade piece. Until now, we have discovered 2 pieces of the jade artifacts in such a shape. I have a question for our expert in charge of this pit excavation. We have the neighboring 2 pits, Pit 6 and Pit 7. We can see the personnel in the blue protective clothing. And also they have written down interesting poem sentences on the back of their clothing. Very cute nicknames, because all those personnel, they are very young, born after the 1990s.
So for these 2 pits, they are very close with each other. Why we call these 2 pits as 2 separate pits instead of 1 pit? So after we remove the soil, and then we look at the traces of each one of the soil. And each pit has its own scope, because the soil inside of the pit is different than the ones outside. And after we excavate the pit, and then we will fill in the soil again. For number 7 pit, next to it, we have number 6 pit. First, the ancient people dig out the number 7, and then we dig the number 6. And actually, we call it the breaking through of the pits. So, just like we are reading a book, it's like we are reading the last chapter, and then we're going back to the first chapter. So from this area, we can see these 2 pits are very close with each other. And the right side is number 6, and the left side is number 7. So this is actually a complete view of the pit number 6. So in pit number 6, on the west side, there is a wooden box. Now you could see the archaeologists right now, they are cleaning the surface of the wooden box. So this is a close shot of this wooden box. We have never seen this kind of wooden box in Sanxingdui site. We're quite excited about the discovery, because we're curious whether there are some human ruins or other treasures inside of the wooden box, whether we could find some of the silk fabrics or other treasures. So on the right silk, actually you could see that is a decoration. So what is that? We think probably it is cinnabar. It is a cinnabar paint of the wooden box. This is a wooden box covered with the cinnabar print. I believe this can be dated back to 7,000 years ago, and also we have this kind of paint available back in Shang Dynasty. And especially if we look at the tombs in the Shang dynasty, people would like to lay out the cinnabar paint at the bottom. It represents blood. And actually for Laker, it has over like 7,000 years of history in China. We are trying to cover the wooden box with the paint. So if we are able to find out the cinnabar, probably we will assume that this wooden box is a coffin. We are trying to excavate in this pit and find out more traces about bone. But till now, we have not yet found any traces of bone or human disease. Bones, but we have to check whether there is a content of fatty acid inside of the soil, because if there was deteriorated human body or animal, there may be a high percentage of fatty acid, and right now we are still testing the soil. So right now we could see one of the archaeologists enter into the pit. So what about this one? I think this one is already carbonized. So maybe this is the bottom of the wooden box. Maybe we found some of the deterioration of the wooden box. We only excavated parts of this pit. On the other side, maybe we are able to find more traces. So we have a lot of questions about this wooden box. We are not sure what are the objects inside of the wooden box. We need to understand what are inside of this wooden box. And this wooden box is quite intact and very tidy and clean. And on top of the wooden box, we are actually seeing a long object. Last time we are not able to see this object. What is that? It is also a wooden object. The length is similar to the length of the wooden box. However, it's more narrow, so it should not be the cover of the wooden box. And on the west side, it's quite flat on the surface. I felt it is like an ancient instrument. But on the other side, it is not like an ancient instrument. We need to open our minds and come up with different kinds of imagination and to prove our imagination. So we have to look into different cultures and different information to better understand the stories behind the relics. We need to use our imagination and try to prove our speculations. This is pit number 6, and our archaeologist is trying to collect some of the samples. So each one of the samples will be packed separately. So these are all the soil samples. And for this one, as you could see, the color is quite dark. We need to do the analysis to see whether the composition of the soil is different. This is the tool we use to collect the soil, which is covered by foil. We just do not want to contaminate the samples. I believe there's a lot of challenge to preserve the wooden box. In the past, we need to set up some of the poles to support the wooden box. We are still using the wooden poles to support this wooden box. We have to cover it with soil and also foil and also the plastic cover. And then we need to cover tower again, just to make sure that the humidity level is up to standard. And right now we will continue to collect some of the samples. Very careful, we have to put the soil inside of the sample box. Just the first layer of the soil. Why we need to collect the samples? Because we need to understand what are the objects inside of the wooden box. We want to understand whether we have silk fabrics. Maybe we could use the test paper to better understand whether we have the silk fibering inside of the box. I would like to turn over to my colleague who is at the laboratory. Hello everyone. So right now we are at the laboratory, and right now the archaeologists and the protectors, they are trying to test the samples of the soil. So right now we have some samples inside of the centrifuge tube. All of these soil are collected from pit number 6. In the past few days, we are trying to collect samples from the soil of the wooden box. We need to run a series of tests to see what is the function of this wooden box. And right now you could see we are testing the soil to see whether the soil contains the silk fibering. And this time, they have collected 6 layers of soil and put the soil into 6 different centrifuge tubes. By doing that, we could have more accurate results. In the new round of excavation in pit 3 and pit 4, we already tested silk fibril, and also we found some of the traces of deteriorated silk. However, those pieces are quite small and deteriorated, so we are not sure whether we have plain silk or figure woven silk inside of those samples. And right now the testing is still going on. And right now we have completed the testing for 4 samples. We're waiting for the results for the other 2 samples. And later, our experts will give us more explanation about the testing. We are quite curious on what the objects inside of the wooden box of pit number 6. We have done a lot of analysis on this wooden box. Right now we are doing the test for the last 2. Let's wait and see the results. Right now we are testing the last tube of the soil.
As we can see that on the testing papers there are some strips. We'd like to ask a question to our workers here. What does it mean with those strips? Could you please explain it to us? Yes, we call it test paper for the fibering of the silk. It can give us the fast-track test on the existence of the fibering of the silk. If there is only 1 strip, it means it's positive. It means we have discovered the existence of the fibering. And if with 2 strips, then there's a negative result. What is the result now? We have around 6 separate tests, and all of them have 2 strips. So it's a negative result. It means that from the samples of our soil collected, we have not discovered any fibering with the silk. So thank you very much for your explanation. As is mentioned before, the result of our test this time, inside this wooden box, there may be no existence of the silk, but still we have to wait for more analysis in the future. And also for the samples taken from the wooden boxes are also sent to other laboratories to check for the existence of the fat or other materials. If there has been any proof to show the existence of fat or alcohol, then it means that in the past our ancestors have put some alcohol or some animals inside this wooden box. So we still should wait and see. And Mr. Wang, now we can see that we have a negative test results. It means that there's no silk material inside this wooden box. And as to the other materials like the fat or the alcohol, we still have to wait for the results of further studies. And for your side, could you please have a guess what we can find in the wooden box? I cannot give you the final say now, but still we have to admit that it's very important. And we should also notice that the advanced technologies are really helpful in this kind of excavation work. With the traditional methods, we can never know the answer to that question. And in other parts from the pit, we have, for example, from the pit 1 and 2, received those positive results with the fibrin tests. We have tested the soil content, and we have embraced that positive results from the fibrin test. And what we are sure now at current step is that within that wooden box, there's no existence of the silk. And we know that for the ancient Shu kingdom, the first emperor is called Cancong, and the character of Shu, the name of that old kingdom, in the oracle bone script is also in the shape of the silkworm. Dating back to 6,000 years ago, Chinese people have already started the breeding of the silkworm. Last year in Yuncheng city of Shanxi province, we have also unearthed 4 pieces of stone sculptures in the shape of the silkworm pupa. Then, since we have 4 pieces of them, so it's a very big number, enough to make sure that it's not only a coincidence that we have such a shape of the silkworm pupa. And also years ago, in the Gongyi area, in the mid part of Henan province, we have unearthed an artifact made of animal teeth in the shape of the silkworm. And also in Xingtai, we have discovered some other proofs to show the history of the silkworm breeding. So combined with that artifact in the shape of the pupa of silkworm dating back to 6,000 years ago, then we can make sure that our ancestors around the midstream of the Yellow River have started many years ago that history of silkworm breeding. And that river basin of the Yellow River midstream area must be the origin of the silkworm breeding. And when we talk about the ancient Shu kingdom, we can never ignore the culture of the silkworm. And there's also a famous figure known as the first personnel to breed the silkworm. And what we are doing now at the site, we are still cleaning away the backfill soil. We have used a very small tool. This is actually an instrument applied usually by our dentists, and we have to detach all the backfill soil from the possible artifacts. We cannot ignore any details. And so we are looking forward to new discoveries from the Sanxingdui Ruins. If we can find some pieces of the silk, it can also help us to better understand this area. And we are also expecting to see more interesting discoveries from this site. So stay tuned. We will bring you new updates later.
Fascinating pictures of the wooden box unearthed from one of the pits whose contents are being excavated, extracted, and sent immediately to an on-site lab for testing. Let's talk about this with my guests in the studio, Professor Li Xinwei and CGTN reporter Zheng Yibing. I'm not going to lie, I was rather disappointed when that sample tested negative for silk material. But Professor, where does that leave us? Without a positive test result for silk material, does it mean the wooden box itself has no value?
I'm still optimism for the result because you can see even this for this sample the result is negative, but probably the silk a decade and it sank down to the bottom of the box. So maybe we can expect for more positive discovery for the bottom
so
soil
it's likely
sample.
they will continue testing samples from other parts of that wooden box.
Yeah, sure. And actually, say the truth, I don't expect that all the huge box is just for silk. So we can expect for other very important artifacts, other probably organic artifacts like animal remains or other wooden or other organic remains.
Understood.
Yeah, also very important. So just keep going and we can take more soil samples and do analysis, and they can even find some real artifacts made by jade and other. It must be a very important box, I think. Yeah, there should be some very important thing inside.
We'll keep watching. Our anticipation doesn't stop here. Yibing, I'm sure this is the first time for you to see the whole process of extracting the contents from, such a container and getting it tested at a lab. I'm sure you wish you were there on the site, on the ground, to see it yourself. But how does that make you feel, this whole process of extracting artifacts from underground and testing its contents?
Definitely, it's really different feeling from the watching and seeing and even worshiping in a museum, because watching this whole process closely makes people know more understanding about how these artifacts came into being. Because in China, in recent years, there was the phenomenon. People cared about a documentary which is called "Masters in the Palace Museum," because that documentary explained how the archaeologists, the researchers in the Palace Museum, to piece together the fragments of the artifacts, and people want to know more about that. So at the current stage, when I watched the whole process, got really excited. By the way, this is not the first time that I watched this process. When I was a little kid, because I was from the Xianyang, the city of Xianyang in Shanxi province, in northern part of China, there are a lot of the excavation site there. When I was a little, I can see in a distance about the excavation site, but at the current time, it's really different. So closely, so much details.
Evolving technology and all has enabled us to see it in a very different light. Thank you so much. I'll be coming back to you later in our program. And we promised you exclusive interviews on our special coverage. In keeping that promise, let's go back to CGTN's Ji Xiaojun at the site. Xiaojun, you've talked to many people in the past days with the right expertise and insider information about what is happening. We understand you're in great company again today. You're joined by Ran Hongling, the head of Sanxingdui Archaeological excavation team. We can't wait to hear what he has to say, Xiaojun.
Same here. I can't wait to hear what he can share with us. So let's talk to Mr. Ran. 欢迎您来到我们的节目哈。您参与这个项目有多久？
这个项目呢是从2019年的10月开始的。
那时候就开始参与了。
对，我那时候就开始参与。
所以这次呢，我们也看了一下以前的一些照片啊，1986年的一个发掘的一个现场，那个时候的发掘考古的一个状况，现在看起来完全就是两个样子。我们也知道科技起着很重要的作用，到底给这次的考古带来什么变化？
主要有2个方面，第一个呢就是对于出土文物的一个保护是起到了很大的作用，第二个就是信息的全面采集是非常有意义的。
体现在哪个方面？信息全面采集？
以出土文物和这个发掘的出土坑的全部信息的一个全面采集。
To collect all the information about the sacrificial pits. When you say the information available, you mean the bronzeware or other information? We talk about the information, we're saying we need to know why we have these pits and what we collected from the pits. So all the relevant information we need to connect. So back in 1986, we don't have those information. Well, we try to collect some of the information of the relics, but at that time there's a lot of limitations. Some of the information are missing. So back in 1986, many people were actually standing inside of the pit. This is not the case this time, because this time we have a multifunctional operational platform, so that our archaeologists do not need to step on top of those relics. So this time you could see inside of the shelter there are many cabins inside of the shelters of the excavation, and those cabins actually built on top of the excavation site. What are the functions of those sites? So actually, it will help us to maintain the stable humidity and also the temperature. So during the excavation, we will not have any impact or damage to the pits. So all in all, is to preserve the cultural relics. Why we need to stabilize the humidity as well as the temperature? And for the relics, it has been buried in the pit for thousands of years. It has already existed in a normalized situation, so we have to better monitor the temperature and the humidity so that the relics will get adapted to the new environment. So we will not damage all of those relics. So why all of these archaeologists wear protective suits? By doing that, we can prevent some of the outside materials falling inside of the relics, for example, the hairs or bacteria from the clothes. So we don't want these relics to be contaminated. And also we see some of the equipments on site. What are these equipments? We are using these equipments to collect information of the relics, especially some of the photos. We are using the 3D scan and also the spectrum scan. By doing that, we can collect the information for all those relics. I understand 3D scan. What is the function for the hyper-spectral detection? By using this kind of detection, we can collect the image for the relics. And also, we are able to identify the texture of those relics. So this time we are able to find some traces of the silk and fabrics. This is thanks to the usage of the hyper-spectral detection. Of course, we will do more analysis on that. Where did we find the trace of the silk fabrics? We find some of the traces in pit number 4, the layer of ashes. We are able to find the fibering. I realized there were many laboratories here. Why will you build this laboratory? This is also for the sake of the preservation of the cultural relics. By no time, we can send those relics into those laboratories so that it can shorten the time of transportation to make sure that all of those relics are in its original shape. And also, this time we have been excavating many soil. We have put this soil into packages. We want to collect some of those samples so that we are able to do more analysis for those soils. Maybe right now we are not able to come up with a conclusion, but with the development of the technology and science, we believe in the future we may be able to do more analysis of the soil. And this time the Fire Service Department also participate in our excavation work. What is their role? And this time we encourage multidiscipline to participate in the excavation work. We're looking at the actual situation. We are also encouraging sectors with their unique strengths to join us. We have fire service team joining us because we find the layer of ashes in pit number 4. We want to understand why these ashes are formed in pit number 4. We want to understand all of those details. That's why we invite some of the experts from the fire service. So what is the conclusion? Will these relics be burned first and thrown into the pit? So right now, our conclusion is that all of these relics have been burned first and then they're being thrown inside of the pit. The objects was burned outside of the pit, and then they throw these objects back to the pit. Let's look at pit number 7 and 8. We are still doing the excavation. So earlier we're doing a lot of traditional excavation. We think there were elephant tusks and the bronzeware in pit number 7 and 8. So as compared to P1 to 4, maybe the situation is similar. And in the future, we may have more jadeware, goldware, elephant tusks coming out from P7 and 8. One more question. And for the excavation work, it feels like the progress is quite slow. Why is that? This time, we want to pay attention to more details. We're doing a precision-based excavation. We want to gather more information about the relics buried underground. So it will help us to lay a solid foundation to preserve all of those relics. And yesterday when I interviewed Professor Sun, and actually, he expecting that we are able to come up with a bronze tree, the Jianmu tree. Is it possible? It's hard to say right now, because we have not yet extracted all the relics from the pits right now. We need to clean all of the relics, and then we can come up with a conclusion. So what other objects can we extract today? We will lift one of the goldware from pit number 5. And right now we're collecting some of the soil from pit number 6.
And that was Mr. Ran Hongling sharing with us his experiences. And indeed, we look forward to more objects to be recovered from the pits. Back to you.
Such a very informative conversation. We thank you and your guest, Mr. Ran there. Thank you so much. We're going to take you right back to Sanxingdui, where we understand archaeologists are now extracting artifacts from pits number 4 and number 5. What will be found in them? They were talking about that just now. Very likely they're going to see more gold foil artifacts. We understand that gold has been discovered this time in many of the pits. Actually, gold is more than just an expensive and valuable metal. It goes to show that the status of the people that were fortunate enough to have gold. It also, another problem we're going to explore is how those gold foil and other goldware were used back at the time. Were they decorations on people's clothing? Were they used as part of the ritual? We're going to explore all of these problems. Now, let's go back to Sanxingdui.
Now we are getting back to the Sanxingdui excavation sites. We have the captain and also the team members for the excavation work. Again, let's have a look at the excavation work going on now inside the pit 5. Still, we cannot see the details about the objects to be extracted from the pit, but as we can see, all those workers are now taking the records and information about this artifact to be lifted out of the pit. And Li Sifan is doing the work. We can see it's a long strip-like piece of gold foil. First of all, we have to clean away all the soil attached to the gold foil. What is so difficult and so challenging about extraction of this gold leaf? First of all, it's very tiny and it's very thin, and we also have to kneel down on that operation floor. So it's very limiting resources that we can have. And at the same time, we have to be extremely careful when extracting gold foil from the pit. Previously, we have already extracted one massive gold facial mask from the pit and also a bird-shaped foil of gold. The most challenging part about this work is the thickness. It's really thin, this piece of gold leaf, and it's also bent and sometimes it's very fragile. So we have to give a lot of patience to the work. And our worker is continuing his work inside the pit, and the others are taking the notes about it. It's of a length of 4 to 5 centimeters. And now it's moved a little bit. And you have to be really delicate in applying all the movements. And also we have to take a little bit of the soil together with this piece of gold leaf, and we cannot force it out from the soil, otherwise it will be damaged. And now it's already extracted. As we can see, it's really thin, and then we have to put it inside this protective box. And what shape is it? It will be similar to the other gold leaves. In general, it's very thin. and it's also part of the pattern. And now we are doing the photo taking, and we are taking the samples, and also we have the QR code by its side. We have measured its width and length, and also we take an ID photo about this piece of gold foil. Now we have completed the photo shooting about this piece of artifact, and our worker is still working continuously inside the pit for the collection of other pieces of artifacts. And we would like to see what is originally buried beneath that piece of gold foil. We have also given a serial number to that piece of artifact of gold leaf. It's the number 145. We have numbered all the pieces. And for the bigger sizes and smaller sizes of artifacts, do you have separate systems of numbering and coding? Every artifact would receive a number, and we will not differentiate all of them according to their size. We treat them all on an equal basis. So all of them would receive an individual number. It's like your ID card number. It can help to locate and also define your general information about the extraction. After the photo shooting and everything about the registration where we send this artifact, we're about to run the test on this artifact in the laboratory. We will use the hyper-spectral machines to see the content of gold. For example, how much gold do we have inside and how much silver, etc. And we can see that communication is also going on within the team members. Although we cannot hear them, they must be discussing about next step of excavation and extraction from the pit. Because the person in charge for this pit is absent, so all the team members should continue with their work after discussion. And the gold ware, they must be a symbol of the power of those aristocrats or even higher ranked personnel in the society. And in the ancient Shu kingdom, they have a rather high level and high degree of this possession of gold compared to the other kingdoms existing during the same period of time. Because this ancient Shu kingdom is quite near to the gold mine, and also we can interpret from this artifacts that they have a preference for the gold resources. In other ancient cultures, for example, the ancient Egyptian cultures, they also have a preference for gold. And we can also find that coating of gold in the famous facial mask of the king. And for the gold, you also have to require certain technology to manage the resource. And this is for the pit number 4. In the very beginning, we have only unearthed one single strip of it, but currently we have many of them now. It's in the shape of the letter V, but for the corner up to the right-hand side, it's been buried currently. And in other artifacts, you can find different shapes, like in the letter V or in the shape of a bird, etc. So currently, because partly covered by earth, the shape of this piece of gold is not clear until now. We are not sure whether it is a very long baton of gold or it's another shape of the piece. But we have to admit that this piece of artifact is quite big. Because in the past, for the pit 1 and 2, we have discovered already the fish-like gold foil and gold artifacts. But for this time, this one, we are not yet sure about its final shape. And to one end, you can see that it's already extended to the extreme. For the pit 4, the situation is similar to pit 1. For example, for the excavation of the jade artifact called Cong, so similarities could be registered between the pit 1 and 4. But now we are not sure how big is that part covered now beneath the soil. That's why we cannot tell you the exact shape of this artifact. This is a very big object of gold. This is a very big surprise for us. Until 10 a.m. this morning, we didn't expect such a discovery. And there's no extra pattern on the surface of it, as we can tell now. And now we have a length of 20 centimeters already exposed in the air, and by the side of it, it's a piece of pottery. And also another piece bulging. That should also be a piece of the ceramics. And now we can have a clear glance at this piece of pottery by the side of the gold. Now I'd like to know immediately the answer buried there. However, we know that it's a long process. We have to pay more patience and also attention to the whole work.
Alright, so what is this gold foil? So what is the remaining part? And just now in pit 5, we're able to extract another piece of gold foil. And that piece of gold foil has already sent to the laboratory. They're doing the testing and the cleaning. I would like to turn over to my colleague Zhao Jing. Right now we are at the laboratory inside of the excavation shelter, and just now the archaeologists just sent the gold foil into the analysis center. Right now the experts, they're observing this gold foil with the hyper-spectral detector, and this time many universities and institutes are participating into the excavation as well as the preservation work. And this time we have this hyper-spectral detector that has been brought by the Chinese Academy of Social Science, and right now they are using this equipment to scan the gold foil. And from the screen, you could see some of the information have been coming out. Mr. Tang, can you give us some explanation on how we scan the information of the gold foil? For all of these unearthed goldware, we will scan these objects. We want to better understand the information of the goldware so that we could provide a high-definition image and photo of those objects. It will help us with the restoration of the objects and identify the defects of the burial objects. After we unearth all of these objects, we can get the original information of those burial objects. And by using this hyperspectral scanner and the high-power microscope, we can better compare the information. We can better protect this goldware. And also we can analyze the information between different goldware. By having these equipment, it will better identify the texture of the goldware. It will help us to better understand all of those relics. So to my understanding, it means that it feels like we are trying to provide an EID card to all of this goldware. And also we have the DNA information associated with the goldware. In the past, we are also using the hyperspectral detector scan inside of the pit. What are some of the achievements right now? Maybe I can share with you one of the achievements in peak number 4. Among the elephant tasks, they are actually covered by the layer of ashes. Actually, these are the remains after the burning occurred in the sacrificial activities, so we could better understand the sacrificial activities conducted by the ancient Shu people when we are cleaning the layer of ashes. After we gain the hyper-spectral image, we are able to analyze some of the information. We are able to find out the traces of the fabrics and the silk. According to our information analysis, we could understand that for some of the organics and the textiles, they're able to be scanned through the hyperspectral scanner. This means that in the layer of ashes, there are traces of different types of organics. For example, for these rock-shaped objects, maybe there may be some remains of the plants. And for this piece of analysis, meaning that we may find the traces of cotton and the silk fabrics and the textiles, with our technology, we are able to come up with the image of all of these objects. And also, we can understand the distribution of the objects inside of the pit. So we will understand what are the original figure and original shape of those items. Maybe their clothes, maybe their fabrics. It will help us to better understand what objects have been used by the ancient people to do the sacrificial ceremony. So by having this technology, it will help us to better understand the civilization of the ancient people. It is of great significance. Thank you very much for your introduction. So actually, in the new round of excavation work in Sanxingdui site, we have some new discoveries. And at the same time, we are facilitating us with the scientific research. This is the live coverage from the laboratory. Back to Guangquan. Alright, later we will continue bringing you the latest updates on the excavation in peak number 3. Let's see if we have more discoveries.
Let me tell you this, here in China there seems to be a considerable amount of interest and attention on goldware unearthed and discovered at the Sanxingdui site this time. Gold foil you saw just now, we're not sure how that was used. Were they part of the clothing that people wore at the time, or were they part of other objects, containers, or other metalwares? These need to be further explored by our archaeologists. But we do know with better clarity about that gold mask uncovered before that has mesmerized people on Chinese social media. But for now, let's go back to the Restoration Center of the Sanxingdui Museum to see how the unearthed artifacts are protected and how research is carried out.
I'd like to introduce some of the other pieces with the gold mask. In pit number 5, the glittering pit, we have unearthed different types of goldware. With the restoration, now you could see some of the original look of those pieces. So right now, the archaeologists and experts are looking into of this goldware. So right now, we're actually analyzing the gold piece from pit number 5. What is it? This is a bird-shaped gold piece from pit number 5. Now you could see the shape of its head and the wings. It's very exquisite. And also you could see the body of this bird. And also the tails, you could see it very clear. Also you could see some of the feather of the bird, just like the peacock and the phoenix. So what about the size? I think it's quite large in size. Yes, it's quite big. The length is about 30 centimeters. And there may be some broken pieces here, but still the width reaches 18 centimeters. And also you are looking into the head of this gold piece. What is the feature of the head? People are saying that this is like a human head with the bird body, but we have to look into this piece with the microscope. There may be some fragmentation of these gold pieces. this is quite different from defined cuts. So maybe there are beads or crests associated with the head of the head. As you just said, it is possible this is a bird-shaped gold piece. But my impression is that if I look at this gold piece, I already see the beak of the bird, and also I could see some of the shape of a human body, because back in the pit number 3, we are also seeing some of the bronze figure with the human head and the body of a bird. So now we could see this gold piece has been unfolded. What is the original look of this piece of gold? So actually, when we are receiving this gold piece, it is overlapping and covered with mud and other goldware. After we clean all of these pieces, we found it's a separate one. I believe this one is a decoration. After we clean this goldware, after we unfold this goldware, it's quite impressive. We could see the neck, the wings, and also the tails and the feathers of this bird. Is very beautiful, just like it starts to fly up to the sky. We would like to compare this gold piece compared to the gold mask. So if we talk about the handicraft and also the skills, so what are the differences? Well, they are using a more complicated technique to build this kind of gold piece, because you could see this one, we have some hollow design. And also they have some seal cutting technology to do the wings and the feathers. And nowadays we are still using this kind of hollow design and also the seal cutting. So that also comes back to the origin of the Chinese civilization.
What about its use? For what function it has been made? During the manufacturing of that gold facial mask, we can see that it will be used to cover another artifact, maybe of a bronzeware. It's being used like a coating for the bronzeware, but for this one it's really thin, and we can look at the edge of it and also the way of cutting. It will be not used for the covering of another object. And now we are wondering whether it will be used as a floating surface of another object. And we still have to run further analysis. And how thin is that? It's 0.12 millimeters. Apart from this bird or human-shaped gold foil, your colleagues are working on other gold foils and artifacts. This is also extracted from the pit 5. According to the preliminary discoveries from pit 1 and pit 2, this one is called the fish-shaped gold foil. Why is that name? Under the observation of the microscope, you can see that we can distinguish a head of the fish and also the eye of the fish here. And by the two sides of the head, there are some intentional cuttings by the smith of the gold. And when we look at the patterns on the body of the fish, we have a lot of lines on the body of the fish and also the scales of the fish. Currently, it's not yet 100% unfolded, but still we can have a basic idea of the exquisite beauty of the making for this gold piece. Nowadays, we have discovered different shapes of the gold leaves from the Sanxingdui Ruins. What is your expectation for the future discoveries? I expect to see more interesting discoveries. And also for the already discovered bird-shaped gold leaves, we know that some pieces are missing. We hope to recover all those missing pieces. Thank you very much. As we can tell until now, our discoveries are going on, and we hope that in the next few days' excavation, we can find more interesting things out from the pit, and with the high technology of today, it can help to better understand the secrets and the life in the old days. Back to you, Chunyan.
I want to get back to my studio guest here, Professor Li. We've been seeing all this beautiful gold foil being unearthed at the pits. Please help me confirm to our viewers what I told them was right, that we do not know for sure that what this gold foil was used for. There are many theories. For example, they could be part of their dresses. That's one theory. They could be part of other metalware, other objects. What are your theories about how gold foil was used back then?
Well, I think one of the most exciting part of this excavation is the gold artifacts, foil and the gold mask. In the previous excavation, we already found some, like the gold foil in the shape of tiger and in the fish. But this time we have a lot, a lot, and much varies in types, different types. And one of the most important things for this excavation, we have a very good context. That means we know exactly where this object is from and what other kind of artifact beside that. And we take the soil samples in the surrounding area and we know what kind of soil beside that. So this provides us a more important information for the restoration of the original usage of these objects. So for that golden mask they found 2 days before, that's probably just an independent artifact, probably used in certain ritual ceremony, probably according to the size and the shape, probably just put on the face of a real shaman when he tried to communicate with the supernatural. And for all these small pieces of the gold foil, as you said, probably they were originally put on the clothes or a certain probably organic artifacts like a leather or wooden artifact as a kind of decoration to give some ritual power, the golden shining power of this object. I believe all of this have been used as instrument during the ritual ceremony. If the shaman, they hold this kind of shining objects, they will have the power. The gold
it
will
boasts
give
their authority and their power.
Yeah, to show your power, and actually it's necessary. You need this kind of special instrument to communicate with the supernatural. So
what about that bird-shaped piece we saw just now? It's absolutely beautiful and elaborate. What are the theories behind that?
Yeah, that's you see bird, sacred bird is very important in the religion of Sanxingdui people. We have many bronze bird figurines, and also on the very famous the bronze tree, the sacred bird. Actually, in China, we have a very long history of bird cult. Bird is very important in the ancient religion belief system in China, and we can see a very clear tradition from the prehistory down to Sanxingdui. So I think for the gold bird, as we know, there is a huge bronze figurine. One of the biggest bronze objects from Sanxingdui, the huge human figurine, is even larger than the real human. And the figurine has the clothes. And on the breast, on the back of the clothes, we can see the design of very beautiful and complex bird design. So probably this kind of gold foil in the shape of bird probably originally had been put on the silk clothes on the the dress for the I believe for the shaman, or actually the shaman, the most powerful shaman, also the king of the ancient Chu. So this kind of a silk dress and also the decoration, the gold decoration of sacred bird, all can give the power, shamanism power for the king. So he has very powerful in the human world, but he also get the power in the supernatural world. So that's very important.
I was constructing all of those visuals of those people back in the day, wearing all of this, clothing that were basically power statements with all of those, gold elements on the clothing. Fantastic and fascinating stories. Thank you so much. Stay with me here on the program. I want to also bring in Professor Jing Zhichuan, Canada Research Chair in Pacific Asia Archaeology of the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. He has analyzed jade items unearthed from Sanxingdui. Professor Jing, welcome to the program. I do want to talk to you about international cooperation at this point. What is the state, what is the situation of international cooperation in modern day archaeological work? Do we need more?
Okay, well, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Professor,
I'm sorry,
please go ahead.
I couldn't see your images, so yeah. Okay, well, thank you. I'm so excited to see this new discovery at Sanxingdui. You know, all I can say is fascinating and amazing and wonderful. You know, and I've been watching the live the broadcasting the past 2 or 3 days. And answer your question, probably I can talk a little bit about the international collaboration in archaeology. We can focus on the China and scholars, students, the public from the rest of the world. That they are very much interested in the China past and also the present. And they're interested in the Chinese archaeology. I think that there's the greater potential for the collaboration in archaeology between the colleagues in China and then other parts of the world. And like Professor Li Xingwei, who on your show, is doing the wonderful work of the Copan in the Honduras. This is an example. I mean, this is what work he is doing is just wonderful. Joined the project between China and the foreign countries, and the Institute for Archaeology is also doing the work in the Egypt, and many other university and institution are doing this kind of work. So, but in the future. And this is I don't have much time here, but there are a few things I wanted to emphasize. I want to talk about, and well, maybe I just talk about the two things. And first of all, I think the Chinese archaeologists and in general, and those from Sichuan in particular, and should proactively interact with the international community in archaeology and then the cultural resource management to promote importance and the relevance of a new discovery and the research at the Sanxingdui and in many parts of China, because there's so many discoveries in China. And we talk about I think promote the importance and relevance of this discovery to many challenges we are facing today, such as sustainability, cultural diversity, climate change. And second, I would highly recommend Chinese archaeologists and from Sichuan or from other parts of the country should, let's say, have more cross-discipline and cross the cultural conversations and the dialogues with colleagues from different parts of the world, directly, indirectly. And another thing I just want to briefly mention, the collaboration should be mutual, and we should focus on the mutual benefits of the cooperation.
Professor Jing, like you mentioned, many people have been watching these archaeological endeavors on television this time in China, which is why we think this makes a great educational opportunity for everyday people. Even since its discovery, Sanxingdui has drawn attention not just from researchers, but also from many history buffs, even ordinary people as well. What do you make of the meaning of public engagement in archaeology?
This is a very important question. For generations, archaeology has been conducted for and shared among the small group of the scholars, just like, we are professional trained. But now many archaeologists consider the public engagement, but then, some countries, we call the community engagement to be important part of their work. A public engagement means that archaeologists thinking about non-professionals as a potentially active participant. Is not simply passive audience for their research. Yeah, that's what the meaning of that. And the public engagement that means community members, just the audience in the public can influence the goals and outcome of the project. it means as a result of the close collaboration, archaeology might learn things that change the way they approach a particular site, or more significantly, the method and the theory they are used to understand archaeological record and interpret the past human action. I would highly praise the work that my colleague in the Sichuan and are doing these days. This is an excavation. Ongoing excavation at the Sanxingdui is a very good example, and how actively engaged with public, with local community, and this is a really amazing the excavation. I'm so proud of my colleague working there.
Professor Jing, you brought us thought-provoking perspectives and views. We appreciate your time and your analysis. Thank you. My colleague Ji Xiaojun spoke to members of the team at Sanxingdui about imaging techniques which are used to analyze artifacts. Take a look.
你好，这个是在做什么？现在是
做高光谱扫描。
高光谱扫描。
对，高光谱。
这个是扫描是什么？扫描这个下面的东西。
不，它是这个主要是表层的，看有一些人眼没有观察到的一些细微的、一些微痕的。微有痕迹，
一些物质。
对，有一些有机物质，它对光谱有一些反应，像我们人眼是看不到的。它因为不同的材质，它就会在光谱的反应上就会不一样。
那相当于这一层，如果整个取完了之后，下一层又得再做一层这个分析，是吧？我是听说发现丝绸的是在这坑吗
4号坑发现，这个坑也发现了，
也有丝绸，但是是痕迹还是说实物？
痕迹，
是痕迹，
实物也都没有了，那么几千年的
都已经没了。
对，但是它那个还有一些残留的蛋白嘛，那个做检测，
就是拿这个分析出来的，
对，可以检测出来，不是这个，
不是这个，
另外一个是用生物的方法，免疫那方面的。
有多少人参与这个挖掘？现在？
这太多了，主要是现在是很多单位合作，像那个北大、川大、上大，还有四川省考古院的，还有好多大学的。
跟大学合作是为什么要跟他们一起研究？
对呀，一起研究嘛，你肯定这个光靠我们自己这个院里面的力量还是不够的，大学的科研方面还是肯定比我们要强一点。
对。
Let me come back to my conversation with Professor Li Xingwei from the Institute of Archaeology, Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Professor Li, let's talk about technology. The report we just saw about those imaging techniques, how crucial are they in this new archaeological endeavors?
Yeah, you can see that high technology, this is a project full of new high technology. So now you can see archaeological project is not just a simple project joined by archaeologists, but we need specialists, outstanding scientists from different disciplines.
Cross-disciplinary indeed, isn't it?
Yeah. That's a typical modern archaeological project. And I think the Sanxingdui deserves that. That's such a very important discovery, I think, not only in China, I believe, also in the world. So as you mentioned, this kind of image, new technology, by scanning the different artifacts, we can know the elements of the artifact. Such as if we do the analysis on the bronze vessel, we can know what's the percentage of different element in that. That's very important for your understanding of the making, the technology of this bronze making, and sometimes it's also very important for your analysis of the origin of this artifact. If the bronze is made locally made, or it's just imported from the different areas. Maybe the mine, the bronze mine, the copper mine of different region might have different characteristics. If you use certain analysis, you can just trace the transportation of these bronze vessels, diffusion of this bronze artifacts. So that's very important. We also have many other new technologies. That's actually what I'm really looking for this excavation, because now we have new technology, we can get more information. For example, the elephant tusk, Before in the first excavation, we found more than several hundred elephant tusks, but without any more high-tech analysis. But this time we can take a sample to try to find trace ancient DNA and other analysis, so we can know where a large amount of elephant tusks came from. It's just locally from the Sichuan Basin. We know probably at that time the elephants just lived in that area, but probably they're from the Hubei or Hunan provinces. So that's very important for your understanding of the relationship between different ancient states. At that time within China, their relationship, their long distance communication, that's very important thing.
I think it's fair to say that we're all a little bit taken away by the type of new technology used in the archaeological attempt this time at Sanxingdui. I'm sure you've been keeping a close watch on what type of technology is being deployed there. Can you share with us your thoughts on the highlight of the many technological aspects of the discoveries at Sanxingdui as we speak, because we're talking about surveying techniques, imaging techniques, scanning. We're also talking about photography, of course, a huge part as we saw today. And then there's that on-site lab where you can send samples immediately after you take them from the ground. What aspect of the technology stood out to you this time?
Probably we can divide this a lot of techniques into three parts.
Sure.
The first part probably is for the gathering of all the information, all the details. We have some cameras to take photos and videos. We have instruments like total station and 3D scanning that scan the macro landscape of the surface of the excavation area, so you can
before all the digging starts.
Yeah, and then after you can scan layer by layer and get a 3D model of each layer with exact 3D position of each artifact, even each point. On the image, when you move your mouse, you can stop any point. You can know the 3D position of every point. So that's very helpful. You can see archaeology is a kind of, we have to say, it's a kind of distraction. After the excavation, all the original context will gone. You need to clean the original soil. You need to take the artifact back to the lab, and then all the original thing have been destroyed. So that's very important. You need to record as much as you can, every details of the original context. So that's why it's very important for the new technology. We need that to make to take as more as information we can. So that's I think the first part, and the other part is to get the information you need just as soon as possible. It will be very helpful for your excavation. When you find some kind of special soil, you don't know what is it. You just take some soil sample, and then if the lab is just beside, you can do the analysis. For example, it's positive for silk. We know, probably this kind of soil might be the remain of decade silk. So that
I'm still keeping my hopes up for that wooden box and its contents.
So that's very important. The other part of the technology will be very helpful for the preservation of the artifacts. This time you can see they have they use a 3D printer to print some material just in the shape of the artifact, and then before they extract the artifact, they will put this material just above that to make it more stable. It's safety to take them away. So, and then sometimes you will make some very fragile artifact. You need to do some analysis and decide what kind of special medicine or liquid you need to put on the surface to make it stable. So that's very important for this first aid analysis. And the other part of the artifact techniques are very important for your further research. just like ancient DNA analysis and many other, some X-ray analysis of the artifacts, a lot of new.
Does carbon-14 fall into this category?
Yeah. So a lot of them. So that's very important to get the information you can never dream to get before. Provide a more clear, much more clear picture of ancient times. So all we archaeology want to do is to reconstruct everything, as much detail as you can, with as much as detail you can. So we need new technology to add the details, to make the picture more clear and to make to tell the story with more interesting details.
Absolutely lucid explanations from you. That has helped me so much. I do want to take this opportunity to squeeze in one last question, if I may, because what we've been talking about is the technology we do have right now. What about the technology we don't have? If you're asked about what technology you wish to have right now to further advance your research and your studies, help us imagine what that would look like.
Well, the most wanted, it might be a time machine, so I can take the time machine back to
all the work and effort and just find out what that all looked like.
But maybe we don't know when that scientists can have that provided for us. But one technology I want is just a much better carbonating, accurate carbonating data. I think now it's not accurate enough. Now the carbon dating techniques still not accurate enough. We can see this artifact is between 3,000 BP to 2,800 BP. So you have a 200 years time space here. So if we can see someday, if we can see this artifact is just 3,000 years BP, and this artifact is just 5 years after that, that's very important. So that will provide much more information. For example, one of the biggest questions archaeologists face for this new discovery at Sanxingdui is that which pit is earlier and which is later. That's a very important question because this time sequence of all these pits is very important for your understanding of the history of the ancient Chu.
I see.
State. So what I want is this kind of new technology, the development of carbon dating or other dating techniques.
Understood. I don't know about time machines, but I love our archaeologists. I'd hate to see all of their jobs taken away by the arrival of a time machine. But Professor Li, thank you so much for your analysis today. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.
And with that, we come to the end of our special coverage today of the Sanxingdui discovery. Our special coverage on the unearthed treasures will continue tomorrow. We'll have more exclusive interviews with experts and live feeds from the site. Join us at 1 p.m. Beijing time, that's 0500 GMT, as we continue to trace the links to the origins of Chinese civilization. I hope to see you right back here at the same time tomorrow. Let's now take a look at the 1,000-year-old relics recently discovered at Sanxingdui.